So let's just jump right in. The ceasefire deal, a 20-point plan. Like I said, the hostages were released. Hamas is now a small fraction of what it once was. Israel is inside in the perimeter. Now that the dust is starting to settle, some of the joy is starting to dissipate from bringing home the hostages, people are starting to evaluate and question on both sides. Everybody has an opinion. Why is the deal that Israel entered into the right deal at the right time?
Well, because we wanted to achieve two things. We wanted first to get all our live hostages back. Nobody believed we could. We did. But everybody assumed that we...
What, you had like 250 live hostages on October 8th, and you got 20 back. 20 divided by 251 is, what is that percentage?
We would only get them on Hamas.
They killed more than they rescued. That's factual. You know, the real answer he's not going to tell you is because he politically, he's losing.
Terms, which means get out of Gaza. Allow them to reorganize, allow them to...
Oh, God, he's so smug. I hate him.
Rearm, allow them to make Gaza an enormous threat to Israel again. And I wouldn't do that. So I said, I'll get all the hostages out in one swoop, and with Israel staying in so that we can enforce, if necessary, disarmament and demilitarization. That's what happened. And had to stand against a lot of pressure. And I'm glad President Trump was a full partner of this. We went into Gaza City, put the knife, the military knife, to Hamas's throat in their last stronghold, Gaza City. And President Trump and his team, along with Ron Dermer, put together a 20-point plan, which effectively isolates.
Wait, you need United States to come in there and do your bidding to broker your ceasefire deals with another country? Why are you so incompetent?
Hamas. Hamas wanted to isolate us. We isolated them. And
I think that Hamas on October 7th, if I'm not mistaken, took 251 hostages. I don't know how many they have negotiated to get back ultimately from Gaza that were released alive and are well. But I know the latest round was 20 hostages, and maybe there was like a dozen other hostages that were returned in the past 2 years that were alive. But it's a paltry percentage. But he's gloating at this point, acting as if he's got this military and political success that he does not have. And he's covering for the fact that he was at a dead end, and politically he was weak, and you know, he got strong-armed into finally acknowledging a ceasefire. I was going to say peace agreement, but we know that's not it. It's not even a real ceasefire, of course. And you know, once again, Israel has not achieved any one of its war aims, its stated war aims. We know that its real aim is to ethnically cleanse Palestine completely and to continue the genocide, which it is, but by his own public-facing comments, he's a complete failure, because he said that he would return the hostage, re-grease the sausages, return the hostages, and destroy Hamas. And he's done neither of those. I mean, given if you want to consider getting 20 hostages back out of 251, political success,
and got the deal. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. The question, though, really comes, you know, the second goal of the war was to do away with Hamas. How can we assure that Gaza will be a Hamas-free Gaza in the future?
Well, you have to insist on achieving those two war aims of disarming Hamas and
you haven't done either.
Militarizing Hamas, making sure that Hamas has no military capability, no governing capability. 20-point plan wishes to give an opportunity to an international force to do that. Fine. Willing to give it a try.
When he says willing to give it a try, he means willing to sabotage it at a later date, sure.
But if not, as President Trump has said, it's going to be done one of two ways. Either the easy way with the international force, or the hard way with Israel. And it'll be done.
When we're talking about the ISF, the International Security Force that's being spoken about, lots of questions in the air of who it comprises of. I don't think anyone knows. Maybe you can shed some light on that. But how can we be sure that it won't be doomed to the same fate as the UN forces that were put into place in Lebanon and southern Lebanon after 1978?
Well, you can't assure it. You can try to do everything to make it successful. But I think we need the right composition.
I just noticed the little Satan that's constantly watching her husband. Look at that. Dead eye. Look at those dead eyes. Even in the, she looks so evil in her, portrait picture. Don't you think she'd be I don't know, looking at the camera and smiling? No, she's looking up. And I think that's intentional. Her eyes are watching Satan.
And the United States has been very clear on something we agreed upon, that the only military forces that will enter Gaza in the international stabilization force would be those acceptable to Israel. And secondly, look, we always have the backstop, Plan B, you know?
Yeah,
If
just
this
Plan B, just buy everyone and everything.
doesn't work, well, then I guess we'll have to do it. But if I can get it done through others, I prefer.
Why would you prefer that? You know, you're the head of the country. Why do you need outside? How does that look good on you that you need international help to fight your wars, to negotiate peace settlements?
Are you free to share which nations are on sort of that green list that Israel would be acceptable for Israel to be part of the ISF?
And we're talking to them right now, and I think it's better that we talk to them confidentially. But I think you can also guess which nations are not going to be there. We've talked about that too.
Yeah, definitely. Look, before the war, we were
So that's a good non-answer, BB.
you had entered into the Abraham Accords. You look at the whole paradigm was starting to shift in the Middle East in such a tremendous way for Israel and for the West. How has the war, now that it's coming to a close, shifted that? How has it changed that? What's Israel's position with its neighbors today?
Actually, I think it
What's Israel's position with its neighbors today?
reinforced it. Because look at all the Abraham Accord countries stuck to the Accords. In the midst of a firestorm of a 7-front war, Israel is fighting.
He's so proud of his crimes. He's like, look at all the that I've started. I've literally took a match to the entire Middle East. And look, they're normalized. Look at these states that just have gone along with it. I can get away with it. Look at me. He's grinning like it too.
360 degrees, they all stayed in. And I think that
I think he loves that too. He likes to taunt his viewers by showing him like, yeah, look, I'm untouchable. Look, I'll do the worst thing, man. I'll do and look at all the people cheering me on. All of the Arab states too. All of the so-called friendly nations that are supposed to champion Palestine in theory. I've got them in my back pocket too.
now Israel has emerged actually a lot stronger than it was on the 6th of October. Not on the 7th of October when we had this horrible massacre. But if you look at where Israel was before the October 7th attack and where it is today, we're actually stronger. We are rightly considered the strongest power in the Middle East.
So after 1,500,000 Israelis have fled, Israeli economists are calling your economy a zombie economy. There's no tourism in Israel anymore. Your settlers are fleeing in droves. Investment deals are being scuttled. Countries are placing arms embargoes against you. You're having to outsource your weapons industry to private mercenary groups around the world. You're having to inflate your war budget by cutting social spending on education and transportation and other vital infrastructure that Israel civilian life needs. And what else? There was one other point I was going to make too. But through all that, more so, the international boycott that's happening. You've incited the entire world against you. Public opinion has plummeted against Israel worldwide, and especially in your biggest patron, the United States. Most Americans have a negative view of Israel now, which is unthinkable. And you've all but spelled out a short-term death sentence for your settler colonial project, and you're still trying to posture as if you're stronger than ever, as you're scrambling to buy entire media institutions so that you can subvert the narrative because it's gotten so out of hand.
We've smashed the Iran axis.
No, you have not. Iran spanked your booty. Iran lit you up like a Please.
We've exposed Iran for not being the superpower and the overbearing power.
Iran exposed you for not being the superpower, that you could get got, that you have no defense, really, even though you vaunt your iron dome.
That intimidated the entire region and beyond. So Israel's stronger. And when you're strong, nations come to you. First, in silent corridors, then in the open. But that's what's happening now. So I think actually the Abraham Accords have an opportunity now.
Wait, what did he just say? What at first in silent corridors? What are you talking about?
So Israel's stronger. And when you're strong, nations come to you. First, in silent corridors, then in the open. But that's what's happening.
So in other words, no nations have come to you. And there's the only thing that you have to show is they've come to you silently in ways that you can't really materialize. Cool.
So I think actually the Abraham Accords have an opportunity now. We have an opportunity to expand them to other countries, and don't look at the surface noise. I'm telling you from below the surface that there are important advances that we're making. I hope they succeed, but I think they have a chance to succeed.
Don't look at everything around. Don't look at anything happening. Don't look how everyone hates us. There are things that are really going along. He might be telling the truth there. I'm sure that he's got some, if we know anything about Miliekowsky, is that he's got some tricks up his sleeve.
Because of the
Why hasn't he attacked Iran yet?
emergence and predominance of Israeli power.
How much does the expansion of the Abraham Accords rely upon the success of the 20-point plan?
I think it's related because, if Hamas were to emerge from the wreckage and they would say, oh my God, we have a great victory, which they're trying to do. I don't think anybody believes that. But if we don't finish off Hamas, it'll...
Wait, you haven't finished off Hamas? By your own admission, you haven't completed your war aim, your core objective?
cast a shadow for sure. So we intend to finish them and finish them off.
And according to most public reports, Saudi Arabia was about to sign on to the Abraham Accords before October 7th. Some reports that I've read have said that Hamas, one of the reasons they launched, the timing of the attack that they launched was in a way to block that. Are we going to see Saudi Arabia back at the table soon with Israel?
Well, I hope so, and I'd rather not engage in public proclamations. I don't think that does any useful thing. I think either there is a mutual interest or there isn't. And
This whole interview is a public proclamation, you don't.
think there is. Actually stronger than ever.
Just say you don't have the support of the Saudis like you want.
So the players on the board here in the Middle East are pretty complicated. I think that's a diplomatic way to put it. We have Turkey and Qatar, whose international standing, from my perspective, has really risen as a result of their roles in the war, or maybe in resolving the war, depending on your
we don't like to publicly proclaim anything except how much we like to.
perspective or on someone's perspective. How does Israel view Qatar and Turkey, who seem to play both sides, take positions, pro-Western positions, and also at the same side pursue interests that are counter to the interests of the West?
Well, I think they have to be confronted with this question. Are you on our side or not on our side? Now, nations have composite and sometimes conflicting interests, but you shouldn't be swept away by naivete. If you can get them on your side, completely good. If not, recognize who you're dealing with and don't be swept away with rose-colored glasses. So you can get...
And at that point, a alien spewed out of his mouth, convulsing in blood. I think the interviewer is just a Satan glazer.
Get what you can get, but be careful not to endanger any of your core interests. And that's the way I approach countries that are not full allies. That's the way I look at them. And these countries, certainly, Turkey has been very oppositional. That's an understatement. Very hostile to Israel and to Zionism in recent years. And that's unfortunate because there shouldn't be a clash between us. But, we're with our eyes open. And Qatar has had its problems. Its involvement on U.S. campuses. Al Jazeera, which was just a poison.
Hey, BB, how's your doing? How's that butthole? Is it healthy or is it eating you alive?
Poisoning the minds of billions. And I've said this to the Qataris. I said, I appreciate your help in getting the hostages out.
Yeah, he said that right after he them. Remember when he Qatar? Oh, yeah, they're good allies. We want to be friends.
But I also recognize the things that we were very concerned with, and we'd like you to move away from those and become a positive partner. And I said that quite openly, and I'll say it again. I'm saying it here.
I was privileged enough to be at the Knesset when President Trump was there with the U.S. delegation up in the bleachers. But watching that, it was really a tremendous event. What was it like from your perspective to have the U.S. president there sort of on a triumphant visit as the war was coming to a close?
I think it was great. I think it was an unforgettable visit, an unforgettable speech. I think it swept all Israelis and many around the world in understanding the strength of our alliance and the importance of America under...
Please don't pat yourself on the back too hard there, Satan.
President Trump coming back to the world scene, becoming a dominant power, shaping events, and helping change the Middle East together. That's basically what we did. On the second or third day of the war, I said, this horror of horrors, we get this massacre that we've not had since the of October 7th. And then we got Hezbollah joining it. And I said, nobody believed me at that time, but I believed. I said, we're going to change the face of the Middle East. Well, President Trump thinks the same way. And on many things, we see exactly eye to eye. So we're moving in tandem to do that.
We see eye to eye so much that our peenies touch. Our little ween. We're so close.
And I think the speech in the Knesset did two things. One, it really communicated the depth of the alliance, the sympathy of the alliance. It's not one that doesn't have problems. Every alliance has problems, but this is so central, so important for Israel's future, and I think also for the future of the alliances of America around the world. I think that was communicated very strongly. And the second was that that President Trump is a unique leader. I don't remember any president who's had this sweeping and personal influence in shaping events around the world. I think it was a fusion
I think what he's saying is that Israel has a sweeping influence personally over Donald Trump.
These two things.
Through that Knesset speech that we all watched in horror, as he basically lays out the case for Israelgate, how Donald Trump is completely cucked for Israel. You know, he points out Miriam Adelson saying that she single-handedly got him to rethink the Golan Heights, normalize occupied Israeli territories, obviously, as well as moving the embassy to Jerusalem, a further antagonistic escalation, normalizing Israeli expansion.
It was absolutely remarkable and unforgettable.
Yeah, absolutely, and hilarious as well.
Everything remarkable, unforgettable.
It's funny.
Yeah, and most people didn't see this, I don't think, but it's important, I think, for the American audiences to know that the entire political spectrum of Israel was supporting him there on that day on what he was saying and his support for Israel.
Some of them grudgingly so, but that's okay. But the vast majority, I think people were surprised also by the.
He loves to dig on his political critics. He's so conscious of them. He's always alluding to that. He's very mindful of how not well received he is.
Strength of the support for him, and he told me he was surprised by the strength of the support for me because he's reading these, fake polls that are coming out in our so-called mainstream media. But you should look at the polls that have been right over time and what you saw in the Knesset. And he told me.
I would love to talk about polls with you, Satan, because the polls don't lie.
What I saw in the Knesset was massive support for you, for you, Bibi. And I said, well, that just reflects what's out there in the field. And he told me this. What I saw in the Knesset was massive support for you.
Yeah, in that very narrow scope of Israeli society that is the Knesset parliament, people were cheering on I saw a different story play out in Hostage Square when Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, and Ivanka Trump gave speeches, which he wasn't there. That's so weird that he wasn't there at his country's gathering where must have been 100,000 people in the audience. But when his name was mentioned, what did the audience do? They booed and they jeered. So you're saying you have a lot of support in Israel or in the Knesset?
Told me, for you, Bibi. And I said, well, that just reflects what's out there in the field. And I was very happy.
That reflects what's out there in the field. Literally days before, he was booed by 100,000 people. And it's not like Donald Trump didn't see that.
With both the great support for him and, frankly, the positive support that he witnessed for me, because otherwise you wouldn't know. You just wouldn't know. There's so much disinformation, so much vilification, so much degradation that actually helped. And I like that very much, obviously.
See, he's alluding to the fact that he's not well liked. He's like, they clap for me in the Knesset, and that shows that there's a lot of support for me that you really wouldn't know if you take in anything else outside of what happened in the Knesset that day.
For those of us, as you know, are very supportive of Israel and the United States. This week, though, there were a few comments that were made that raised some questions on the relationship. We know it's a close relationship, where the administration made comments on the vote on declaring sovereignty in Judea and Samaria. Also, the president made a comment on the release of Barghouti and his role on that. What kind of role do you think the U.S. should play in Israeli domestic matters? And is there a line by which allies, even the greatest allies, should stand behind?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, notwithstanding this or that comment, I mean, we have a great alliance of partners. It's interesting the way the pendulum swings. I was in Washington a few weeks ago, and they said Netanyahu controls America and America's defense policy. Okay, and then it flipped. America controls Netanyahu, and it controls Israel's defense policy. Neither argument, neither statement is true.
He's spending a lot of time trying to combat his critics, isn't he? And combat what he calls misinformation, which we might just call information.
Israel is an independent country. The United States is definitely an independent country, and we are partners. We're not a proxy. We're not a subservient power. We're an independent state, and we fashion our own security policy.
I mean, just by him having to respond to these things, it's exactly fire. It harkens back to him having to publicly state, we didn't Charlie Kirk. I didn't Charlie Kirk. The fact that you're even having to respond, to that criticism, you're legitimizing it in a way and admitting that there is truth to it.
Follow it. We defend ourselves by ourselves, and we decide what is dangerous for us, and we act accordingly, both in preventing attacks, say along the new yellow line in Gaza. And if you attack us, we attack you immediately back. But if you prepare an attack, we go and wipe you out. We just did in Gaza.
Just casually admitting war crimes. Who said that they were preparing attack? It's like the IDF investigating itself.
Do in Lebanon. It's not only if you attack, Hezbollah attacks us, but if it organizes to attack.
If you think about it.
So we're not asking permission from our American friends. We just tell them. That's what we're doing. And that's fine. That's the way it should be. And I think that's understood. But America has its own interest. I recognize that. And we want to see America succeed where it can. It should be the great power that it is now. And it should continue to be, because that's good.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good quote, Obi-Wan. In the civil services, there's a saying, never believe something until it's officially denied. And that way, and then you'll know it's true.
For Israel. And America, what's good for America is...
and that's what he's doing right here.
I think both the vice president said and Marco Rubio said, they want a strong and independent Israel because that's the anchor of security in the Middle East. And if Israel weren't here, a strong Israel wasn't here, there wouldn't be a Middle East.
I think when he does this, he's actually symbolizing like Israel is breaking apart. That's what that motion means.
It would collapse under Iran in 2 seconds. And they know that.
As Prime Minister,
It would collapse. Wait, what would collapse?
There wouldn't be a Middle East. It would collapse under Iran in 2 seconds.
Without Israel, the Middle East would collapse under Iran. Wow. But I'm sorry, Satan, you're at war with 8 other countries right now in the Middle East, but you're protecting the Middle East. You're saving the Middle East. But you started wars with every country in the Middle East. And the problem is Iran? How many wars, how many airstrikes has Iran called in against its neighbors? How many wars has Iran started in the past 2 years? In the past 40 years? I would really love to know. Is the dangerous Iranian proxy resistance axis in the room with us right now? Or do I need to invoke Israelis' favorite word, imagine?
They know that.
as Prime Minister, final question, just a personal question. The last 2 years, you've had the whole world crashing down on you, putting all the pressure.
Oof, that's a dead giveaway. Mr. Prime Minister, the past 2 years, the entire world has been crashing down and criticizing the state of Israel. How do you sleep at night?
Not just externally, but internally in Israel. You set a mission that you wanted to achieve with this war after the attack of October 7th. And everyone was pressuring you to do things differently, whether it was the Biden administration or all the way towards the end. You held fast to your beliefs and to your strategy.
Wait, are you Satan glazing interviewer? Are you casually admitting that the United States put pressure on the state of Israel? No. The state of Israel does what it wants. How dare you acknowledge that they are pressured by their American counterparts?
And you got to where you are now, which is, decimated Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, the Houthis, etc. And Israel is now seeing the other side of this war. On a personal level, as a leader, what does that feel like? What position do you feel like you're in now after going through all of that?
Well, it looks as though if I stop now, I'm headed to prison.
Well, I think when you're in the eye of the storm, you have to decide if you're going to be swept by the storm or you're going to be a rock in the storm. And if you're swept by the storm, Israel would have suffered an enormous defeat, and America would have suffered an enormous defeat. It would have been a triumph for the Iran axis if we accepted all the pressures that were put on us, both from abroad and from inside, domestic pressure by the deep state, by the left and others,
The deep state. I love when the deep state talks about the deep state like they're not the deep state. Jesus Christ. Jesus, Jewish, Dean Christ. What a dead giveaway. Who the is he talking about when he says the deep state, if not himself and the people that pay him? He's just a paid liar. He just lies with every breath. He lies as he breathes.
stand still, that is to not go into Rafah, not capture the Philadelphia corridor, basically surrender to Hamas demands. And if we did that, then Sinwar would have been alive, and Def would have been alive, and Nasrallah would have been alive, and Syria would be still run by Assad.
Oh, yeah, that's right. All the leaders of other countries that you just decided to assassinate. Right. Yeah. What a military genius. That showed just complete strategic prowess, didn't it?
And Iran would still lord it over everyone, thinking that they're going to have in 2 seconds or in 2 minutes atomic bombs to...
Wait, 2 seconds, 2 minutes, 6 months, 4 years. We've heard this for the past 40 years. Iran is just on the brink of getting nuclear weapons. It was either 2 seconds or 2 minutes, guys. I don't know. Either way, it's really soon. He contradicts himself because in other interviews, he forecasts like 2 years. A lot of different visions of the future, but they all involve at the hands of Iran.
Annihilate everyone in sight. That's what would have happened. And of course, I couldn't agree to that.
Operative word being would. Operative word being if. Operative word being imagine.
And so the reason I could withstand the storm is that I knew that if I capitulated to it, there would be no Israel. It's as simple as that. And when you're in a leadership position, you have to do what is not only what is right, but what is absolutely necessary. So I had no qualms about that, but I had great support. I'll tell you where. I had great support first from my family, and first and foremost from my wife, who's been
looking at you for the entirety of this interview, menacingly, like a demon.
rock through thick and thin, and I think eventually people will know the importance of her extraordinary support for me, for my family, and for the country.
We're going to hear all about your wife's ironclad support for you, Satan, at the tribunal.
I'll tell you who I had as the greatest supporter: the soldiers of Israel and the people.
The lion. Here comes incoming lion metaphor. Ready?
People of Israel, vast majority of the people, and almost every single soldier that I met during the war. I would go into Gaza, I'd go into to the Lebanese border, and I met all these soldiers coming from across the country. Their commanders, who are incredible.
Lions, come on, say it.
The division commanders and others, and they said, Prime Minister, keep going, don't stop, don't surrender. And I'll tell you, that's a lot of help. And you're serving a larger cause and a larger purpose. It goes back to the millennial dream of
oh God, incoming biblical brain rot metaphors.
only establishing a Jewish state, an independent Jewish state in our ancient homeland, even Israel, in Judea, Samaria, and the rest of the land of Israel. It goes back to the fact that
the Bible,
our generation now is charged with preserving that dream, keeping it going, assuring its vitality. So I think I had great support. You may have thought that I was isolated, but I didn't feel that way. I felt that I had the best support that any leader can hope for.
Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all the work that you do, and thanks.
Thank you.
All right, back to the goy slap. Shut it down. All right, I must go. While I was giving this interview, I could have been... But I didn't get that done. I need to do more. I have a quota to hit.
Thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe to the page to help it grow. And if you'd like to support my work, join my Patreon for exclusive content.